Everybody, we are live for another Freedom Builder Bootcamp Q&A session. Rolando, how's it going, man?
Good, good. I'm excited to be here again. This is our once a month routine, and it's so much fun to meet up with everybody, all our members.
Absolutely. For those of you who aren't familiar with how it works, Rolando and I are here for the next hour to answer all the questions that you have for us. So we'll start by taking some of the questions that you all have dropped in the comment section, and then after that, we'll move over to the live Q&A chat. So go ahead and start dropping your questions in there. And yeah, for the next hour, Rolando and I will answer as many of them as we can.
Yeah, we got a good lineup. I'm liking that everybody comes in immediately once the post is live and starts dropping their questions because then there's no lag time and everybody makes the best use of the hour with us together. So with that said, let's jump right into it. Looks like Eric has the first question here. He says, "Hi all, I am a UK-based Amazon seller and looking to launch in the US. Would you recommend having a warehouse in the US for FBA returns? My product will be around $30 to $40, and I'm not sure if it's worth having products returned to me from Amazon or just having them disposed altogether." So, what's your take on that, Greg?
In general, it is very challenging to make returns or to, I guess, send returns back to Amazon in a cost-effective way to resell them is like wasteful, and it's kind of as sad as it is. Unfortunately, most people do dispose of their refunds unless it's a high value type item, then it can start to make a little bit more sense. But I mean, if you think about it, like the work required um, uh, to kind of like repackage them, put them in new packaging, what have you, send them back to Amazon, shipping both ways. The result of that is typically something that costs more than like the goods themselves are worth.
All right. I'm getting a little bit of feedback. I don't know if you are on your end, Greg, or if our viewers are. Just if you are getting feedback, mind letting us know.
I
All
am
right.
picking up a little bit of feedback. Let me, while you read the next question, make sure it's not on my end.
All right. Tim asks, "Hey guys, I have some samples coming in the mail, but will take about 13 days to arrive. I'm starting to wonder what to do while I wait. Can I make the listing on Amazon now and just have an offline version?" And yes, absolutely. During this time, while you're receiving um, your samples, you can begin to create a listing. You don't need, you just need like an image as a placeholder for the time being. Listings do not go live until the supply is checked in at one of Amazon's warehouses, one of their fulfillment centers. So you're good on that front, and you have nothing to worry about. And yeah, I would fine tune it, work on my do some keyword research, start creating my titles, working on the bullet points, making them nice keyword rich. Um, those are things that you could definitely start working on here now. And then there's always, the back end search terms that you want to fill in and any other information possible. All right, looks like some feedback coming through. Let's see.
Yeah, Rolando, I think that may be on your end because I just tried muting mine to see if it makes any difference, and it did not. Let us know in the chat box if you're picking up on that feedback as well, or if that's me and Rolando just going crazy hearing things.
And I can live with it. So if it's just me, we're good to go.
All right, I'm going to pop over and take one from the live chat. This one is from Shiraz. She said, "Hey, Greg Rolando, after I get brand registered, can I throw copycats off my existing listings before I was brand registered?" This is a common source of kind of confusion for a lot of people. And with brand registry, that's telling Amazon that you are the one that does own the official listing. Now, if somebody is selling on your like selling a counterfeit item on your listing, then you actually don't need to be brand registered. You could order that. You could report it to Amazon, tell them that this is a counterfeit product, and Amazon takes that very seriously, and they'll take kind of corrective action on that particular person. If the person is purchased your product, then is reselling it on your listing, that's actually not against Amazon's terms of service. So this can be really frustrating for people because it's like, what the heck? Why are there other people selling on my listing? But if it is the real product and not a counterfeit, unfortunately, there's nothing you can really do about it.
All right. Looks like we're being heard, so that's good. So I guess we'll continue on. I'll take on one of Rob's questions here. He asks, any update on PPC automation tool? I'll punt that over to you, Greg, since you are the
Yeah, good question. Why don't I just say, stay tuned. This has been like a common feature request, and yeah, hopefully we have some exciting announcements for y'all in the near future.
Right. Rob also asks, how do we validate Amazon's reimbursement is correct? So for that, Rob, you'll want to download a report from Seller Central. Let me see if I could pull up the path that you have to take. Essentially, you would hover over the tab that says reports. Then the next tab that you would select is fulfillment. And then you will see there's two places that you could validate this. There's under payments, reimbursements, and then under customer concessions, this is going to be on the left-hand column, there's FBA customer returns. So it would just be a kind of a little bit of homework on that front, but you'll be able to validate it through those reports.
All right, let's do another one here. Britt says, Opportunity Finder often has adult products listed. However, when I add them to the product tracker, no data ever shows up. If we can't get any data, how does the opportunity know if it's a good niche and if we can trust it? Amazon makes this kind of challenging. And the reason for this is you can sell adult products on Amazon. They technically do have to be categorized correctly in one of the adult categories. And to find them on Amazon, you have to like first go to the adult categories and then find the products under it. Now, when you are like, for the people who do sell adult products, they don't sell as well when they are in those categories because it makes it much harder for the shoppers to find. So some people try to get around it and essentially list the adult products in like the non-adult categories. So I say all of that to give you a little bit more insight into it and also say that it throws the software tools for a little bit of a loop because sometimes it's showing these adult products like in the normal categories where it's not supposed to because people are trying to go around it. But then once they are categorized in the adult, like you can't go directly there to collect the information. So it turns into just kind of like a little bit of a challenging problem.
All right. Rob has the next question, asks, could you please create a video on expanding to other countries? On my Amazon dashboard, it says your US catalog is in high demand in other countries. Definitely, always drop as many suggestions as you can. This is a good record for us to keep to be able to for the next videos that will be in process. As I mentioned, we are working on a PPC video that's priority, the top of the priority, and then we could work back to some of these other suggestions that y'all have.
All right, I'm going to take this one from Rachana. Hey, Gregory and Orlando, should we find our own freight forwarder or get supplier recommended freight forwarders? I'm confused on the freight forwarding process. What is the most common Incoterms recommended? Let's see here. Typically, I recommend people to find their own freight forwarder as opposed to using the freight forwarder that your Chinese company has connection with. If you're shipping ocean, if you're not shipping ocean freight, And if your factory can get better air freight costs for you, then I recommend going that route. As far as Incoterms go, FBO or free on board or freight on board is most common for ocean shipments, which means it's up to the factory to get it to the port where they then load it onto the boat. With air freight, like especially like Air Express, something like a DHL or UPS or what have you, then XWorks, which is EXW, is the most common Incoterms, and those are both the Incoterms that I recommend.
All right. Rob asks, does Jungle Scout have any partnerships with freight forwarders to get the best prices? Unfortunately, we don't. I personally use Flexport. Greg uses Flexport. These are, there's many options out there. I just find Flexport to be very easy to work with, and so that's a good starting point. But as I mentioned, is it Freightos is the site that you can also look to see for additional freight forwarders. Just kind of like shop it around a bit. But yeah, unfortunately, no price breaks for us. Then Rob asks, I want to wholesale a product and package it together with my ASIN. What's the best way to go about this? Personally, I think the best way to do this is to have your items shipped to a 3PL service or provider. Many of them now offer the ability of bundling on site. So this may be a way to avoid the headache of trying to send your product from one manufacturer to another to try to bundle it before it ships. If you're not able to do that, that's probably going to be the most cost effective. Then the second thing would be to use your third-party logistics company to perform the bundling for you. What I'll do, Rob, is I'll drop an article that we wrote that covers this topic and some of the different 3PL service providers.
All right. Kimberly says, an Amazon rep entered my brand name wrong, and I'm having the worst time having it changed. Any suggestions? Kimberly, I feel for you here because sometimes it can just be a nightmare working with some of these Amazon reps. My suggestion for you is try to do whatever you can to hop on the phone. The success rate of getting things like this sorted out if you're on the phone with someone is way higher comparatively to sending the support tickets back and forth. When you're filing a ticket inside of Seller Central, there's like different flows you can go through for different problems that you're having. If you try a few different flows, some of them will have the option to request an immediate callback and some won't. So I'd recommend trying to find one that's relatively similar to the problem that you're having where you can request a callback. That's my only suggestion I have for you. Yeah, I'm sorry. I know how that can just be like so maddening trying to work with them.
All right. Rob entered quite a few here, so we'll try to get through them as best as possible. So Rob asks, I want to wholesale a product and package it. Oh, already covered that. Actually, we're on the last one here. Do you add your keywords from your exact campaigns and ASINs from your product targeting to negative targeting in auto campaigns? And yes, so if the keywords that you're targeting in your exact match campaign, you would put those as negative exact. Now remember, that's important. You don't want it to be a negative phrase or broad. A negative exact inside of your auto campaign, as well as if you're using a secondary campaign just with like a broad and a phrase match, then you would also put the negative exact keyword in that campaign. So if you're working with 3 campaigns total, which is typically the structure we talk about here, but so that way that exact match campaign is literally the only one you're not taking up, you're raising up the bid on yourself and stuff. Self cannibalizing is the word I'm looking at. So just keep it clean and simple, and that's the way to do it.
Jordan says, how can we use American consumers? I live in Canada. I don't know if I'm quite following what you're trying to ask with this question, Jordan. Could you try rephrasing? Shiraz says, hey, following up on your reply, if the copycat does not have the identical packaging that I have, can I get them kicked off the listing? Yes, if they do not have the identical packaging so it has to be the same product, same packaging, same UPC, the exact same product, then it is a counterfeit. What I'd recommend doing is ordering one of those so you have proof, and then filing a complaint with Amazon. Go ahead and just take this next one. Tony said, Flexport said they only take clients with at least 20 transactions in a year. In smaller businesses, we put on a wait list, so they don't seem to be accepting small clients right now. I've seen Flexport do this before. It seems like depending on the volume of new clients that they're having, they kind of restrict it to larger customers only or allow everyone in. For you, I'd recommend Freightos. Freightos is what happens is it's kind of like a Expedia or one of those. It's a place that you go to ask for a freight quote, and then they send you a whole bunch of different quotes from different freight forwarders. The nice thing about this is they're all kind of competing on price for your business. It's pretty easy to use. So that's nice. Like you can definitely get a less expensive quote there than what you would be able to with Flexport. I would say the downside of it is, since it is like a whole bunch of different freight forwarders kind of like competing for your business, the quality of them can like differ sometimes. Sometimes you get, you end up using one that is really like high quality and great to work with, and other times maybe not as awesome.
All right. Santos asks, hi all, how does one get FNSKU and UPC to use for private label? So we go into great detail in module 4, and it looks like lesson 3. Greg talks about setting up a GS1 barcode. But what I'll do is I'm also going to drop the link in here. Something that they recently started doing is that you could buy a single UPC or barcode, and before you were having to buy bundles of 10 or more. So this will save you a little money on that front, because when you're launching your first product, you're just going to need one barcode unless you have variants, and then you would want to go with the different packages that start at like 10 barcodes and on up. So I'll go ahead and drop that info in there for you.
Let's see. Rob says, if Jungle Scout could integrate a simple way to validate Amazon's reimbursements, that would be great. Thank you very much for that feature request. I agree that would be really nice. Let's see. Wamik is helping out Kimberly in the chat box. Thank you very much for that. That's one of the things that I love about Freedom Builder Bootcamp, is how everyone kind of chips in, helps each other out. They said they had the same problem. You'd have to create 2 cases, one brand registry and one with the catalog team. They're referring to the entered the brand name wrong. And when you create a case address, it's as the catalog team, and on brand case as brand team, and attach all the registration documents. So thank you for that help. Brett has the next one in the chat box. He says, hey guys, question 1. In the video, you talked about asking if the supplier is a manufacturer or a trading company. If I'm able to get a good price from a trading company, is that okay? Are there any issues I should be worried about with a trading company? Yes, that's okay. You can work with trading companies. There are benefits of working with trading companies. If they are good to work with and they have good communication and language skills, oftentimes they can be easier to work with than some of the factories. Downside with it is typically like oftentimes it slows down communication, because like you have to ask them something, then they have to ask the factory for it. Also, like a little bit harder sometimes to maybe hold them accountable or responsible if things go wrong. But in short, yes, there are pros with working with the trading companies, and it's fine if you want to go that route. His second question is, when I first started product research, the first item I liked was lockpick tools. In the video, you mentioned that they're not allowed on Amazon. Is it true that they're explicitly mentioned as an item that cannot be sold? But I see many sellers on Amazon that I've been selling them for years, as Amazon actually enforces. I have personally looked that one up because for a period of time, it was a super hot product. Um, Amazon explicitly says you're not allowed to sell them. Does Amazon actually enforce it? They Amazon enforces pretty much everything. Like what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like scattered, or they enforce it kind of like poorly. So, or also kind of like unfairly. So they'll enforce it for some people and not other people. Earlier we are talking about the adult items, and a lot of those are good examples of it. It's like some people have probably been selling those things for years with no problems. Other people will start selling, and after 3 days, they'll get taken down. So it's like, I wouldn't recommend that route for anyone, because if you have a whole bunch of money tied up in inventory and you get taken down after a few days, to me, that's just like a pretty big risk to take on.
All right. Looks like Sunny has the next question, and it looks like the following question from Tim, I could kind of bundle them together, so I'll try to tackle it all at once. It says, Sunny says, "Thank you so much for answering our question. Is there any drawbacks for storing products in one's garage because of the $200 limit versus 300 versus 3PL?" So to answer that, there's definitely no drawbacks to storing them at your garage. Of course, granted, you want to make sure that this isn't a product that could get damaged, and to make sure that your garage has the proper ventilation, so on and so forth, because when you're going to go and submit that product to Amazon, then of course you just want it to be in good functioning working order. The 3PL, the disadvantage of a 3PL is, of course, the cost associated with it. It's going to be a little money up front in terms of shipping the product to the 3PL warehouse. Well, not much different than sending it to one of the fulfillment centers. And oftentimes you can actually find that they will, they're not in the storage business. What they tend to do is they want to be able to pick, pack, and ship it for you. So it would require a little integration with Amazon and so on. But yeah, those are things to think and keep in mind. Just a little extra work with a 3PL versus just you doing, slapping a label on a pallet that's in your garage and having, FedEx coordinating with Amazon, having FedEx come pick it up for you, or UPS, whatever the the partner carrier will be. And then the question is, I guess we should have the items palletized by a 3PL before storing it in the garage. Thank you. So what happens is normally your freight forwarder will palletize it. So if it's bulky and big enough, when they're taking it out of the container that's coming from, say, China, your freight forwarder will pick it up and they will build pallet and palletize it for you. From there, you would either ship it to, say, your garage or to Amazon's fulfillment centers. So that's not so much on a 3PL, it's more on your freight forwarder that would handle that. Or of course, if these boxes come individually to you, you would palletize them and just follow the guidelines on how Amazon wants them stacked and what the dimensions are for per pallet. And then Tim asks, can we touch more on the 200 unit limit? The reason I say this kind of ties into that is a lot of the reason why everyone's using their garage and using 3PLs right now is because of the pandemic, and Amazon's just overwhelmed. And so what they've done in order to execute, I guess, to process inbound shipments faster, is they've limited new listings to 200 units. And so the goal here is try to be creative in how you can either ship in product that, because maybe the minimum order quantity that you have to order from your supplier is 1,000. And so maybe pay up front and see if they could warehouse there at the remaining 800 units if this 200 limit applies to you. And then otherwise you could use your garage as the alternative. I know it's like a lot of information in here, but this is kind of the what we're dealing with right now due to the pandemic. And let's see here. There's one more section to Tim's question. I have samples coming, and I made a deal with the supplier for initial order 500 units, not knowing that at that time that there was a 200 limit. Should I ship the rest to my house and send them into Amazon myself? And yes, that's perfectly good. And if you store them in your garage, Amazon actually will cut you a good deal when it comes time to reship in more product if you use one of their partner carriers to ship in your product. So There you go. I think we covered everything about shipping and the 200 unit limit.
All right. ZR says, I ordered 1,000 units. The order finished just before Chinese New Year. I thought I did good so I can save 1 month for shipping, but unfortunately, the freight forwarder kept my entire order in their warehouse in China. It's after Chinese New Year. Any recommendations for future orders on what is the best time to order and ship units from China? The best advice I have for you here is like just to keep an open line of communication with the sales rep from the factory. So, you can be talking to them about like, how backed up are you right now? How long's the wait? Would you be able to ship this before Chinese New Year? Chinese New Year is always a little bit more frustrating because a lot of the factories take 3 or 4 weeks off work. There are other Chinese holidays, but none of them are as long as this. So it's like Chinese New Year is really the hardest one to kind of plan around.
All right. Sarah asks, hi, I'm fairly new to the group and a bit of a slow starter. No worries. Take it at your own pace, Sarah. But think the course is amazing and learning so much all the time. Thanks to all the presenters and interaction. Is there anywhere I can look up all the abbreviations for example, UPC, FOB? There are so many. Thank you, and looking forward to tomorrow. So yes, absolutely. I will drop in the comments an article once again with all these abbreviations that Jungle Scout has created. So I'll look that up and get that to you.
Let's see here. Next one. Rob said, are there any global sourcing virtual events coming up? Not that I'm aware of. As you all know, with COVID, international travel is heavily restricted. Yeah, so that is putting a damper in global events right now. Tim said, just curious for us Canadians, under the sales tax page on the Amazon sellers, they list the states where they collect the sales tax for you. But as a Canadian selling in the US, how do you deal with sales tax? Short answer is you don't have to worry about it. Amazon collects and remits the sales tax for you in just about every state. I haven't checked in the past few months. There might be a few states left where they don't do that. Technically, that is up to you at that point to collect and remit the sales tax if they don't do it in all the states yet. But if I'm being frank with you, most international sellers or even domestic sellers for those last few states don't do it because some people believe a little bit of a gray area or maybe not heavily enforced. So that's kind of the truth to it.
All right. Tim asks, it looks like you had Tim on the live feed. Tim, when looking at a product under the Keyword Scout, what sort of numbers are ideal for the PPC bid? We haven't answered this one yet, right, Greg? Say, I don't know if you have any suggestions there, Greg. I'd say anywhere between like $1 to $3 is not uncommon. The higher the bid, that the PPC bid that you're seeing on Jungle Scout, it just indicates the like how that it's actually a very competitive product, because you have a lot of people competing, and as each one ups the bid, then the next one ups the bid, and you're just, so that's a very competitive product if you're seeing that its bid price is pretty high.
You have another one there you want to grab, Rolando?
Yeah, Angela says, if a product is returned, can I charge a restocking fee? If so, how do I do this? To my knowledge, with Amazon, you cannot. I don't know if you have any insight. You can correct me on that, Greg, but I'm almost positive that you cannot.
That's right.
Angela has a few here as well. Angela asks, I had a supplier say that if I book an inspection for 100% of the products instead of an AQL inspection, then the per unit cost will increase as it will cost them more money. Does this sound right? how does it cost the supplier more money if I am paying the inspectors? So what they're referring to is if you typically they'll do when an inspection happens, it's spot checks, uh, and they have to open up a unit that's already been sealed. So it does increase the cost of the inspection for them to do 100% of your products, as of course they would have to reopen each box and then reseal it, repackage them. Keep in mind when the inspector comes, they just again they do like the random check. They probably check a good chunk of your inventory. I would say it's adequate enough, but definitely, I mean, if you're willing to pay that extra money to and you have a product that that can kind of eat up that cost, then it doesn't hurt to do a check 100% on all your inventory. But yeah, we've never had a problem doing the randomized inspections. Looks like Angela has another one. She has a few here. Good questions though. If a product is returned with the reason delivered late by carrier, what happens? Will Amazon credit back all their fees, the referral fee, as well as the fulfillment fee? That's a good question. I don't know. I'll punt that one over to you, Greg. I'm not absolutely sure.
So, sorry, I was researching one of the other questions. Can you say it one more time?
Yeah. Angela asks, if a product is returned with the reason delivered late by carrier, what happens? Will Amazon credit back all their fees, the referral fee, as well as the fulfillment fee?
I honestly don't know.
You stumped us there, Angela. I'll have to research it and I'll get back to you on it.
If I remember right, Angela is an accountant, I think. She always has like the questions about the very minute details of something. It's like, I don't know. I haven't looked it up. I just rolled it. I guess kind of to that point.
Yeah.
I guess I've never cared enough to look at some of those really fine details because there's nothing you can really do about it. Like if Amazon's going to charge it, they charge it. But I also understand why you'd like to know that.
Yeah, it's the same here. It's like typically they're few and far in between. So I guess that's probably why it's not a very common, at least in our case, it hasn't been a common issue.
Okay. Rochana says, thank you for your reply on my previous question. My product is packaged in a clear plastic poly bag. Do we provide supplier with design required for packaging? Is it expected the supplier do the printing and inserting in a poly bag at no extra cost? As far as the cost is concerned, just talk to your sales rep about it. It's usually like the default packaging price is typically included in the pricing that the factory gives you, but that's good to clarify. If you want something special that's better, expect the cost for that to be higher. If it's just a clear plastic poly bag, you don't have to provide the supplier with a design for that. If you want them to print something on it, then you would need to most likely need to supply a design, and you can expect to pay more if like what they quoted you was just a clear unprinted poly bag.
All right. Angela has the next question. Is there any disadvantage to registering with brand transparency? Personally, I think that there isn't. It's always going to be, of course, the cost associated with it. And trying to think if there's any other disadvantages to it. It's Amazon's thing, so it really would only impact if you're selling on Amazon. It only applies to selling on Amazon. So I mean, those would probably be the only two disadvantages to brand transparency. And for those that aren't familiar with brand transparency, it's a program that Amazon launched not too long ago, and it's supposed to be able to help identify any fakes, phonies, or brands that are essentially trying to sell your product. And of course, it helps in protecting it because it's a specific barcode assigned to your products, and they could very quickly identify anyone that's trying to scam you or off your brand. All right.
Next one. Dennis says, hey, Greg, thank you for all your coaching so far. In the product research phase, how important and accurate is the opportunity score? Is there a number we should always aim for? I've been doing research for some time. I want to start on the right foot. Can you explain further? The opportunity score should just kind of be used as like a general rule of thumb. What it takes into account is how much demand there is and then like the level of competition. Honestly, like it could probably be updated a little bit because Amazon's constantly changing. So I mean, it's better to go kind of like off the rules of thumb and like the guidelines that we give you in the Freedom Builder Bootcamp versus just off that one number.
All right. Angela has the next one. When I download a PPC search terms report and the customer search term is in ASIN, what does this mean? Essentially, someone was looking at a competitor's product, maybe a similar product to yours, and they clicked on one of your ads within their listing, and so that would generate that your ASIN, or actually, yes. So then that would generate the ASIN within there. Typically, what you could do is you could do some product targeting. So that's a good strategy to take, is to take that ASIN if it's lucrative, if you see that it's actually got it's performing well for you. So then you could take that ASIN and do a product targeting campaign, and that way there now you kind of you can capitalize on that.
All right. Next one I have here is Jordan asks, how do we sell in the US for us Canadians? Two ways you can do it. You can internationally ship your products from Canada. Shipping is going to be slower and more of a hassle, so don't expect to get as good of sales that way. The better way to go about doing it is to send your inventory into the US, into a FBA warehouse in the US.
All right. Angela has the next question. It's just a string of questions, so it's good that we're going back and forth. Does A+ content automatically replace the product description? I added A+ content to my listings, and the old product description still appears below. Do I delete the product description or leave both in for ranking? And ideally in this situation, yes. So what happens is also depends on the template you choose when you're creating the A+ content. Certain templates override entirely the product description, and it's just not visible. But I would keep it in there. We don't know for certain. Of course, we don't have access to understand how Amazon's A9 algorithm does this, but it's worthwhile keeping it there just in case they are still using those keywords. Another thing that is important, as with your images, make sure that you're putting metadata that that corresponds to those images, and so on and so forth. We don't know how Amazon's using that information. It's there for a reason. I imagine you'll definitely want to take advantage of it. All right, Tim has a question here, which we've touched on earlier. So it's, what's the best way to bundle two products you have to get from separate factories? So one way is sending it from one manufacturer to the other, and that person, the main manufacturer, will bundle it together and create custom packaging. Some factories will allow that. The alternative to that was using a third-party logistics company and having them do the bundling for you. It's always, of course, an additional cost, but just bear that in mind. And in the comments, I've dropped a link to a little bit more details on what to look for in a 3PL company and how to get started with that.
Next one here is Don says, should you repeat single keywords and keyword phrases in your listing and in the back end? Amazon's A9 ranking algorithms are pretty smart. Some people would say that you should. I don't know if it really makes much difference. So I guess there's a lot of different schools of thought here. I wouldn't worry about it, but different people have different opinions. Ron, what's your opinion on this one?
Oh, I apologize. I was reading the
It's all
question.
good. Yeah, I'd say Don, just I wouldn't really worry about that. Don also asked, what are reasonable fees to use a third party storage? These vary greatly based off of how big of a seller you are, how jammed up the warehouses are. Like since COVID started, there's just a shortage of warehouse space in general. So everyone's been jacking up their prices. I remember like pre-COVID, I was paying $20 per pallet per month, but I don't think there's like anywhere you could find those rates anymore.
And I would add to that, the best gauge really is to compare Amazon's fees
Mm.
versus what your third-party logistics company is going to charge or what they're quoting. You'll find that 3PLs tend to, even though they may have raised their prices due to the pandemic and the short supply of 3PLs, you'll find that they're still competitive when it comes to Amazon. Amazon can be a little more competitive or can be a little more steep in their pricing. So if you're finding that you're getting a better deal, then that's how you kind of weigh out that option, I would say. Angela asks, I use the Jungle Scout keyword list to create a list of phrases. If a phrase contains a plural that does not make sense in the listing, in the non-plural in the phrase is the non-plural in the phrase okay? For example, if I was selling a welcome sign and I suggested sign and a suggested phrase is welcome signs for home in quotes, will welcome sign for home in the listing be okay, as it would be difficult for welcome signs for home to sound correct in the listing? So in scenarios, when it comes to a word that does not sound good in your listing, my recommendation is put it as a back-end search term. And that's not visible. And in fact, one cool little hack is to even drop in a few Spanish phrases in there, because of course your listing's in English. You don't want to put those on your listing, but you could put them in your back-end search term. We've had a lot of success with that in retrieving like our main keyword. People doing a search in Spanish for that keyword, our listing pops up. And same thing here, same would apply. If something just doesn't sound phonetically or just doesn't link up right in your listing, definitely you want to provide a good customer or a good user experience on your listing. And that's the cheat, is to put it in the back. And it's totally legit. This is not gray hat, this is or black hat. So you're good. The only thing I'll add that you cannot do on your back end search terms is do not put another brand, a competitor's brand as the name, as the search term anywhere on your listings.
All right. Brett says, if you ship from your garage using one of the Amazon partner carriers, do you have to palletize it, or do they just ship the boxes? If you use like UPS, you do not need to palletize it. If you are using like a less than truckload shipment, then they will expect it to be palletized. And through the setup, or like through the shipping purchase wizard or whatever it is, they instruct you how to do that. And you have to enter like your pallet dimensions and stuff.
Right. Angela asks, I downloaded a returns report and noticed that products with defects are stating customer damaged or carrier damaged are being returned to inventory to presumably be sent to customers again and again and again. How do I stop this happening? There is, I don't know the exact path, but there's a setting where you could indicate to dispose of, and that's what you'll want to do if you want to avoid that. I'll have to send you the pathway. Like I'll just drop it in the comments of where to go in the settings to be able to indicate that you want to dispose of it rather than it go back into inventory.
Shiraz asks, can you include an insert with a customer email address in your product packaging as long as you don't ask for reviews? Yes, that's fine. Tim said, I'm struggling with trying to create a brand name and logo, but I'm certain on a product already and want to get into Amazon as soon as possible. Should I worry about rushing to try and design a brand logo, or can I do that later down the road on another product? You could push that off. I mean, even if it's not printed on your product or on your packaging, you can still kind of show that brand on your particular listing. So yeah, that would work. Rob said, how much wiggle room is there for negotiation? The price per unit listed on iBalb is pretty close to what I am getting it for. It's so hard to say. The best thing I have to recommend as far as like pricing from your factory is try to get pricing from as many different factories as possible. Through that, you probably see like what's a good price and what isn't. And then you also have better negotiation room with all of them because you have other offers.
All right. Angela asks, Seller Central says the NCX rate records, and the NCX, for those that don't know, is negative customer experience rate. So Seller Central says that the negative customer experience rate records, if customers have reported a product related or listing related issue, is there a way to find out exactly what the customer reported, as we may be able to fix the issue? The only tool that Amazon gives us at our disposal, if it's listing related, unfortunately, they really don't get, there isn't a report or anything that you can do, but it could be listing related, it could be product related. And so the way to find out any additional information or any additional insight is you would want to hover over on the tabs to, let's see here, performance, the performance tab, select voice of the customer, and there you'll see the products that are being impacted negatively or positively in some cases. It gives you both. But if you see that it has a poor rating or a very poor rating or whatever the case may be, you can go in there, you can see the details, and in the details, typically you'll even find additional comments that a customer may have added as well. So that's a really good place to like a starting point. And then there may even be like a resolve issue button that you could select if it's something that's ongoing and that requires your attention. So I would recommend periodically go in here, see if there's anything that any information that you can gather, as well as any ways to resolve issues.
If you don't have that, you might have to be brand registered in order for that to show up. I'm not quite sure because I have brand registry, so it shows up for me.
It's true. It's true. Good observation.
Sony says, if selling a children's product, I was going to have Chemo run the special test for ASTM and CPC and advise on proper labeling and allowed to sell on Amazon. Is there anything else we should be aware of before ordering such products? No, not really. You can ask Chemo what, that's like the best resource to figure out what tests you have to run. Don says, thank you, Greg and Rolando. Oliver said, I'm stuck at creating my product listing because of a very few simple boxes to fill out when adding a new product not sold on Amazon. And until I fill them out, it won't let me proceed. The ones I'm stuck on are below. Firstly, I'm not able to get my manufacturer part number until the product is being made or ready to ship. Honestly, you can just make that up. Like it can just be ABC 1, 2, 3. Like you're in this scenario, you are the manufacturer, so you get to choose what it is. The next one, can you guys help me understand what PPU count is and also PPU count unit of measure? So these boxes differ depending on what kind of product you have. PPU, Rolando, do you know?
I don't. My apologies. Yeah, I'm trying to look up the question, but I don't have any additional insight on that.
If you tell us what kind of product it is, I might be able to figure it out. PPU count and also PPU count unit of measure. I don't know. I'm sorry. That's specific for whatever like subcategory you're in. Oh, I have an idea of how to figure it out. Go to Amazon, find a product that's in the same bottom node category as what yours is, and then go down into the product description section, and that should, at least for like newer products, be filled out in there. Alternatively, you could chat with the catalog team and ask them what it is. That's what I was thinking, that it's price per unit, but it says PPU dash counts, like price per unit count. I don't know, might be price. Yeah, not sure. That was God voicing in here. Thanks, Lenny.
Uh, Dennis asks, "Hi, Greg, Rolando. I don't know if you answered this one. I think we're at the tail end of the questions that were submitted, that were pre-submitted. Hi, Greg, Rolando. In the product research phase, how important and accurate is the opportunity score? Is there a number that we should always aim to see? Example, above 7. I have been doing research for some time, as I want to start on the right foot. Can you explain further?" I personally, the opportunity score is a quick and easy way to look at a category or a search that you've performed. I don't necessarily rely on it as much, only because I like to dive in deeper, right? If there's a product that looks lucrative and there's not as much, it's not as competitive. I mean, that's probably the most important thing to look at, that it's not as competitive. And I'm looking, and I take the next steps as far as like just looking on Alibaba.com, how much I could get price per unit, what's my profit margin, and there's demand. A lot of times, the demand is the demand to me is the most important thing. And so if I can just take it the next steps, I could and dig a little deeper, then I know if it's a good product that I'm working with or not. Don't let that first initial opportunity score throw things off entirely. If anything, maybe anything 5 and above is good. I don't know what you would recommend here, Greg.
I would recommend just don't get too hung up on it.
Yeah.
So PPU is price per unit. So price per unit count. So that's like if your item is sold, let's say it's coffee beans and it's sold in ounces and it's 16 ounces. If it costs $16, it's $1 per ounce. And when it says PPU dash count, that would be like how many of those units is. So it'd be 16 ounces. So price per unit is $1. The PPU count would be 16 ounces. Yeah, there you go. And with that, we are all out of questions, Rolando, and it works out well because we're also about end of time. So I want to thank everyone very much for tuning in. This is always a lot of fun for Rolando and I. Hopefully we're able to answer all of your questions, and we will see you again in a month. Thanks, Rolando. It's good hanging out, man.
Yeah. Keep crushing it, Freedom Builders.
Take care.